Hey family, how's it going? Freedom March back here with another video. Back talking about another presidential candidate. This time we're discussing not James Clyburn. I'm thinking of somebody else who needs to be dealt with. We're discussing Joe the Bigot Biden. So just like all of the other presidential candidates, Joe Biden has nothing to offer black people. On the contrary, he has everything to offer black people and when it comes to destroying our communities, destroying our families, and destroying our socioeconomic situation. Now, if you haven't heard, Joe Biden is infamous and has been scrutinized for his 1994 crime bill, which in a nutshell is a bill known as Biden's Law. He's so proud of the bill he named it after himself, though lately he hasn't been too proud to claim that bill. But the 1994 crime bill, in a nutshell, pretty much, it didn't necessarily force states to build more prisons, but it incentivized states to build more prisons by saying if these states want this certain amount of money, I believe it was approximately $9 to $12 billion that the federal government was going to loan the states, they had to increase. They had to do a few things. They had to pass a few laws that the crime bill was incentivizing in the past. So, for example, states had to increase the mandatory sentencing to where prisoners who had to serve time had to, at the minimum, serve 85% of their sentencing. So that's one thing that it had to do. And it's a few things. There's a few more things in the crime bill that incentivize states to do things that weren't really that wouldn't do anything beneficial for the black community, because let's be honest, mass incarceration targeted the black community more than anybody else. Essentially, it singled us out, and this is what happened. Now, the crime bill was less about crime, not about guns or violence at all. It was more about subsidizing prisons, state prisons. Now, you'll see the argument where a lot of people will say the crime bill didn't have anything to do with mass incarceration. It was the states who were mass incarcerating people, which you can easily and quickly debunk that with the facts I just gave you earlier. The crime bill incentivized states to pass stricter laws to obtain the capital to build the prisons in the first place. And then when they built the prisons, a lot of the prisoners had mandatory sentencing guidelines that they had to stick to. They couldn't get out. They had to serve a certain amount of time and other things that I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. So the federal government still played a huge role in subsidizing these prisons that turbocharged the prison industrial complex and turbocharged mass incarceration, which primarily affected black people. Now, that alone should tell you, black people, that Joe Biden is not the person who should be in the Oval Office. He should not be sitting in the Oval Office. As a matter of fact, we will guarantee that that racist monster will not sit in the Oval Office. He has never had an agenda for black people. He has always been a racist, anti-black bigot. He was pro-segregation, didn't want black people to sit near white children, called it racist for anybody incentivizing that happening, and his entire record, his entire past is filled with anti-black bigotry. Now, there's not really much more to say. Excuse me. Joe Biden's a racist. He's not going to do anything good for black people. And just like a lot of the other Democrats who are passive racists or undercover racists, we're better off without him. And he's not getting the black vote. And we're going to make sure that monster doesn't get into the White House to make a 2020 crime bill. So I want to thank you guys for watching. Like I said, it's pretty much the same with Bernie Sanders and Cory Booker and Kamala Harris. You gotta vet these presidential candidates. Most of them have very checkered pasts that are not favorable towards black people. And once you do the research, it's really easy to pick out who's a good candidate, which really ain't many, which is fine by us. As foundational black Americans, we want reparations. We have an agenda, not a specific person we want sitting in the Oval Office. So I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Keep your heads up, stay woke, do your research. As I always say, do your own research, and I'll see you guys next video.